In my last video, I bid a sorrowful goodbye to my old Jeep Liberty. So it's out with the old. And in with the new. Well, at this point, you must be at least curious as to what kind of vehicle I decided on. I mean, the white Jeep Liberty, I think it really did me well for the amount of punishment I put it through. It had the essentials I needed, which is four-wheel drive, which for the back roads, I wouldn't drive on back roads if I didn't have four-wheel drive, or just on snow and certainly ice. It had the towing capability for my small trailer. Never had any major issues getting up hills and passing on a highway or any of those other important things that I need. It has a reasonable amount of space, and the miles per gallon, I think it was about 18 miles per gallon, which I'm sure there's other vehicles that are better than that, but that was okay. It would be nice to get a few more miles per gallon, but I put up with it. I was content with that. So it was hard to find something that was going to at least meet those standards. And the other thing is, I can't afford a new vehicle. So it had to be an older model of something. And I mean, the first one that came up was the 4Runner. Wonderful car. Holds its value. I don't know if I've ever heard saying anything bad about a 4Runner. I think a 4Runner is a good vehicle, but they're expensive because they hold their value. And what I could find, it was always high mileage, at least 10 years old, if not 20, and that was just defeating the purpose, because I'd be buying an old vehicle that could be at the end of its time. So I looked around and finally I found something in northern Alberta, in Lacombe, Alberta, that seemed to fit exactly what I wanted. So I went up, I looked at it, I was with it for 5 minutes, and I knew that was my vehicle. Bought it on the spot, no questions asked. And that's what I'm driving now. Well, after a lot of searching, the only car that really worked for me was another Jeep. So the 2007 had a few bugs, I agree, especially those windows. That was the worst one. But I think, as far as I can see, the engineers figured out they'd screwed up a few things, and they fixed them when they got to the 2010. And I think it's only till 2012, then they stopped making Jeep Liberties altogether, which was a shame. I mean, they put all their effort into this vehicle, they make all these improvements, and then they stop. They cancel it. They don't make them anymore. And they go on to something else, which they're probably going to screw up, and then they're going to have to do more and more improvements. When you get it right, you should just leave it, but that's just not what happens today. So in a few years, I'm going to be going through the same thing for sure. But in the meantime, there was just one little flaw in my Jeep engineering philosophy. Well, it's day one of my road trip with the new Jeep. I'm stranded. Stranded on the side of the Trans-Canada Highway. Let me show you why. Look, see, right there. Whoa. That looks hot, hot. Looks to me like the issue is not the belt, it's the pulley. But I'm not a mechanic. I do not touch tow vehicles. I leave that to the experts. I'll just play around with the trailer, but not the tow vehicle. I know my limits. Looks like a plastic part that should have been metal to me. Well, anytime you're on the road, there's always that chance that your vehicle's going to break down. And it's a good thing if you're prepared for it. Now, I do not have towing insurance or anything like that. However, I did bring a map, so I know where I am. I'm about 20 kilometers just west of Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan, so you're going to get to see Moose Jaw, whether you like it or not. Cell phone, of course, cell phone works. I'm in a signal range. Didn't take back roads this time. I took the major highway, and one of the major reasons is that there's going to be cell phone coverage most of the way. So in the case of an emergency, that's a real good thing. Now I just have to wait for the tow to show up and find out what the issue is. Hopefully I can get it fixed quick. These little emergency kits, really handy to have. Ideally, place the emergency marker even farther back than I did, perhaps 100 feet. To be safe, I waited away from the vehicle in this patch of poison ivy. I did manage to call a tow truck, so it was only a matter of waiting. It took him about an hour and a half to fit me in. After 15 minutes of lifting and securing my Jeep to the flatbed, we were on our way into town. By sheer luck, the garage I randomly chose happened to be a Jeep specialist. But in the excitement of the moment, I did something I swore I'd never do again. I locked the keys inside my car. Oh, I think I can get them. The only saving grace is that I left the sunroof partially open. Put that in there. Got it.
There you go.
There. Left the keys in. With the Jeep now closed for repairs, It was time to explore the town with the strange name, starting, of course, at the Tourist Information Center. Well, let me introduce you to the mascot of Moose Jaw, and that is Mac the Moose. And if you know anything about moose, and moose is singular as well as plural, by the way, you know the way to distinguish a male moose from a female moose is to look at the junk under the trunk. However, Mac's a little neutral here. Or you can look at the antlers, because females do not have antlers and males do. And so if you look at this moose, you'll say, well, must be a female because it doesn't have antlers. However, you'd be wrong, because Mac is a male moose. Well, bull, you might say, but here's proof at an old postcard that Mac had a rack. Mac was known as the largest moose in the world, about 10 meters, I believe, until somebody in Norway built a taller moose that was 200 millimeters or 8 inches taller than Mac. And Moose Jaw wasn't very happy about that. So what they did is they had the antlers removed, and in a few weeks, the new taller antlers are going to be on Mac. Now, to be honest with you, I think the Norway moose is prettier and shinier, but Mac is more authentic because look, he does shed his antlers. And you can tell in his eyes that Mac's a little uncomfortable without his horns. So be sure to check out his new rack next time you pass through Moose Jaw. There's more to Moose Jaw than the roadside attraction. The Tourist Information Center has a special spot where RVs can spend the night for free. That way you can hop on a trolley and see what was once known as Canada's most notorious city. Moose Jaw was once a major railway town founded in 1882 by the Canadian Pacific Railway. But in 1893 another railway link was added, the Sioux Line from Chicago. This turned a sleepy prairie town into a wild frontier stop famous for its partying, gambling, and drinking. And legend has it that during Prohibition, it was a favorite hideout for Al Capone, turning it into Canada's most notorious city, the Little Chicago. Well, if you like gangsters and underground culture, you just can't miss the secret tunnels beneath the city, where both migrants and bootleggers took shelter from the law. Today, Moose Jaw is a vibrant city, from the well-preserved architecture of City Hall and the little splashes of color throughout Main Street. Or why not just chill out for a while and take a beautiful stroll through Crescent Park? You can feed a duck, bring a lunch, and just find a nice shady spot to hang out. So of all the places your vehicle could break down in, Moose Jaw is one of my favorites. Which reminds me, it's time to get back to the garage and see how deep my pockets have to be. Which probably explains why this garage cat is so well fed and happy. With a new water pump pulley and a fan belt, I was on my way again, sailing through the prairies. Well, the Jeep's all fixed. Road trip is on again. And if Dog River sounds familiar, you must be Canadian. Toot toot! Well, I followed the rails for a little bit. I eventually went the opposite way, east. In Canada, there's only 2 seasons. It's winter and construction season, which is not the greatest for a traveler. But hopefully I'm making it far enough that I don't have to stop in the middle of nowhere and try to stealth camp. I know the plan was to do some camping, but so far that hasn't gelled. It just hasn't been the opportunity. It's been a lot of driving. But it's a road trip, so what do you expect? But I am learning a lot of things about the Jeep that I didn't know. Actually, mostly positive things, but a few annoying little alarms and all that go off, which I'm not used to. I can't even put the key in the door without the alarm going off, so I'm sure there's technology there for your security, but it's also a pain in the butt sometimes. Finding a place to call it a night can also be a pain, as there's few boondocking spots in this part of Canada. If you're lucky, you might find a little park or a truck stop to get a little shut-eye. Well, it comes to going to sleep for the night. Using your vehicle to sleep in can have its challenges, because like this one, it's not really meant for sleep. It's meant for traveling. But with a few adjustments, it does fine. And what I like about the 2010 Liberty as opposed to the 2007 is it has a little bit different layout and it has more space. But let me show you what I do. First thing is just bring the seat forward a little bit and tilt the backrest. And anything I've got hanging down, I just put to the side. So that leaves me the back. And what I've done is I've got my cooler right by the seat here, and that just gives me about the same height as the seat itself. Now, I can put the seat forward like that. I can get the seat rest off there because it's in the way. And that brings that part almost level. Now as for the back, I already had a padded lounge cushion, a pillow, and a sleeping bag. So all I have to do is put it in place. It's actually quite comfortable. I've got a lot of foot room. I've got a slight incline the back of the seat so my head's not down. Got a light here. For ventilation, I can put this window open just a little bit, and I've got the sunroof. Now, in practice, it does have its challenges. If it's hot in here, there's not a lot of circulation, and I really don't want to run the air conditioning. That kind of defeats the purpose of being stealth. But I think what I'll do is the sunroof, I'll probably have like a magnetized screen so I can have this open, and maybe something in the side windows, because what I found out, it gets really hot in here even at night, and without the circulation and without protection from the bugs, you open the sunroof and the mosquitoes just come right in. But if it was a cool night and there was no bugs, this would be perfect. The windows are dark, so people can't really see what's going on the inside. And I can put all my stuff. I can put food. I can put a water in here. I can have a light if I need to. I can read. So I'm kind of happy with it. This is what really gets people out in the prairies, is the roads are so straight that it's easy to get sleepy or bored. But I did see the weirdest thing when I was out in the prairies the other day. When I was coming into Moose Jaw, And there's nothing there. It was just fields of canola and wheat and not much else. Oh, and the third crop, the third biggest crop in Saskatchewan is telephone poles. And so I was driving around and saw nothing but telephone poles and fields of wheat. But just out of the corner of my eye, I saw these two things climbing up a telephone pole really quickly. And I thought, well, what was that, raccoons or something? I didn't know what it was. But when I looked closer, it was two cats climbing up and down telephone poles in the middle of nowhere. But that's not the weird thing. These cats had no fur. They were hairless cats, these pink blobs with wrinkles all over them, the ugliest things I've ever seen, in the middle of nowhere, chasing each other up and down these telephone poles. What on earth were they doing there? There's no houses around. I mean, are they feral cats? Are there feral cats in the middle of the prairies with no hair, burrowing in the prairies? I mean, maybe that's the Saskatchewan version of the Sasquatch, these little elves that come up and down telephone poles. And yeah, I didn't have my camera ready. That was another failure because nobody will probably believe me it happened, but I saw it. Well, my road trip with my new Jeep took me all the way to Ontario. I'm near Sudbury right now. And the second bonus is I ended up getting a U-Haul and hauling some stuff back. So that helps pay my gas to get back. And I get to try it out as a towing vehicle. So it's win-win. Now hopefully I get back okay. Well, that rest stop I needed. I think at this point, I actually haven't been doing a lot of talking about the new Jeep, which is exactly what this road trip is about. Trying out the Jeep in a real situation on the highway with lots of big trucks coming. So this is a 2010 Jeep Liberty. I think it's been treated well. And because I've been driving Liberties in the past, I am kind of used to this. And I hope people understand, because I do read the comments, and I do know there are some people out there that just do not like Jeeps or Jeep Liberties because it's a Fiat and all that. But you gotta understand here. First of all, it's not a Fiat. That was in 2014, and this is a 2010, so it's not the same thing. I understand everybody has their favorite vehicle and their favorite company and their favorite sports team and all that stuff, but I'm happy with this Jeep. Specifically, it's not that noisy. Like, I'm in a noisy situation right now because I'm on a rough road and I'm going 120 kilometers. But most of the time it's quite quiet. I don't have to yell. The tires are good tires. They're all-terrain tires, just as good quality as the last ones, but they're a lot less noisy, which is really good. I love the sunroof. I want to use it to take pictures out of it. I'm not going to do it on the highway, but that works. I have more space. I can actually lay out in the back and sleep. I don't, if I'm in a situation that I'm only driving with the Jeep, I can sleep in it. It needs a little airflow. I found it gets really stuffy in here, but I can still do it. So all in all, as a tow vehicle, I'm happy with it. I'm comfortable driving with it. I've got lots of space. The only thing I'm not quite happy with, although I've got to experiment a little bit more, is I don't think the gas mileage is as good. But it could just be what I'm towing right now, and I never actually, I haven't had a chance to actually have a tune-up. I just did an oil change and stuff like that, so that will come. But For what I paid and what could I afford, I think this is the best value. But who knows, I might see something better later on. So thanks for all the recommendations, but for right now, I'm sticking with the Jeep. I know many appreciate my nature, hiking, and camping videos, but unfortunately, this is not one of them. This adventure was a road trip in the most literal sense of the word. It was concrete, asphalt, white dotted lines, solid yellow lines, and highway signs of every shape, size, and purpose. It was a horizon constantly zipping by my window, with any beauty only fleeting or missed completely by the blink of an eye. It was the ballet of transport trucks, the pounding of the windshield wipers, the gore of roadkill, and the dodging of potholes. Gas stations and fast food restaurants had coffee, fuel, restrooms, and gave a short interlude to the world constantly passing by. Amongst all the madness, there was one brief instance where I got to commune with the natural world, and I'll close with that little walk into paradise. I hope you enjoyed this video and will join me on my other journeys ahead.